For centuries, the way we see ourselves, our identity, has been woven from three really fundamental threads: our country, our language, and the media we all share. But what happens when those threads start to come apart? That's what we're going to get into, this profound digital age reconfiguration of who we are.
It's a huge paradox, right? We can connect with anyone, anywhere, instantly, but at the same time, it feels like our national and tribal lines are being drawn even sharper. To really understand why, we've got to rewind and look at the original blueprint for how our identities were built in the first place.
So, let's stick with this idea of identity as a tapestry. For the last few hundred years, these three threads, a specific territory, a common language, and a shared national media, were woven together really tightly. And that created this stable, coherent fabric of what it meant to be, say, French, or Japanese, or American.
Okay, so where do we even begin? Let's start with that very first thread, territory. To get a handle on our present, we have to look at the blueprint of the modern world, which is the nation-state. And honestly, it's a surprisingly recent invention. It's kind of wild to think about, but before the 15th century, the whole idea of a country, as they know it today, well, it just wasn't really a thing for most people. Your identity was tied to your local village, your clan, or maybe the feudal lord you pledged allegiance to. It definitely wasn't tied to some grand national project.
So how in the world do we get from these local lords to the countries we see on a map today? Well, this timeline kind of walks us through it. After Rome fell, Europe was basically this messy patchwork of feudal loyalties. A huge turning point was in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia. That's what really established the idea that states are sovereign. Then the French Revolution comes along and introduces this radical new idea that the state belongs to the people, the nation. And that just paved the way for things like the unification of Germany, which was all about aligning a cultural group with political borders.
Okay, so that's territory. Now for that second thread. If territory gives a nation its borders, a shared language is like the cognitive glue. It's what creates that powerful, almost intuitive sense of us versus them.
And this is where it gets really cool, because language is like this secret DNA that reveals our deep history. Linguists can actually trace similarities between languages to reconstruct ancient ones that nobody speaks anymore. Just look at this. The word for father is pater in Latin and Greek, and pitar in Sanskrit. Mother is matar, meter, matar. You can literally hear the echo of a single ancestor, what they call Proto-Indo-European. Over thousands of years, as people moved around, this one language split off into all these different branches, eventually forming the distinct linguistic identities that would become the foundation for our nations.
All right, so you've got your borders, you've got your language, but how do you make sure everyone feels like they're part of the same team all at once? Well, the 20th century came up with the answer: